Hello everyone, and good evening, and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Audit Committee. I am Councillor Kiran Khan, and I'm the chair of this committee. Normally I would start with welcoming the people in the public gallery, but there is no one, so we'll move on. For those in the building, there are no scheduled fire drills tonight, so in the event of a fire alarm sounding, please leave the building via the main spiral staircase through the main reception doors. Once outside, please turn left and make your way to the fire assembly point located beyond the multi-storey car park on Exchange Road. If you are unable to use the stairs, please wait in the council chamber and you will be guided by a member of the staff to the evacuation lift. This meeting is being live streamed via the council's YouTube channel. Please note that there is no comments function as part of this webcasting. The council is the data controller and will retain the data collected during this webcast. This will be done in accordance with the council's published retention policy. Councillors are reminded to take note of what is displayed on the screens in the room, as this shows what is being recorded and webcast. Cameras are currently set to capture you in seated positions, so please remain seated when speaking. You can request to speak as usual, raising your hand. Speak by pressing the button with the face on it, and the microphone will go green when you are live. It is important to remember that when you are not speaking, to please turn your microphones off. Committee members and officers are reminded to be mindful that, given this meeting is being live streamed, any comments made and responses given must not contain exempt information. When referring to a page within a report, it would be helpful if councillors reference the page number of the agenda pack rather than the page number of the individual report. So now we're going to move on to the apologies for absence. Have we had any apologies?
We haven't, Chair. Everyone is present.
Okay, great. Are there any disclosures of interest which councillors wish to declare? Okay, great. So, thank you. Now we are going to move on to the approval of the minutes. Does the committee approve the minutes of the meeting of the Audit Committee held on the 18th of November 2025? Okay, great. So, as there are no members of the public in the gallery, we will move on to the next item of the agenda. So we will be skipping over that. So we will now move on to the Auditor's annual report of the year, ended 31st of March 2025, which starts on page 11 of the agenda pack. I will ask Hassan Rahim, the partner at Ernst & Young, to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So our annual auditor's report is a report which we issue. It summarises the conclusions of our 24-25 audit. Members will be aware that at the last meeting we presented our audit results report. The key differences between the auditor's annual report and the audit results report is the audit results report is issued before we issue our opinion, and the auditor's annual report we issue it once we've issued our opinion. Also, another key difference between the two reports is that this auditor's annual report also includes our commentary on value for money arrangements. So there are a number of areas within this report which members would already be familiar with in terms of the key points which were communicated within our auditor results report. I'll largely take the report as read, but just to highlight that we did issue an opinion on the 2nd of December, as outlined in at the previous Audit Committee, we issued a disclaimer opinion on the financial statements, and in respect to our responsibilities in relation to value for money, we had no significant weaknesses to report by exception. Another key point in terms of just outlining for your attention is that on your page 17 of the report, we do make reference to the in terms of the local government reorganisation, that the government has stated that it will issue directions under Section 24. Once directions under Section 24 are issued, then MHCLG has noted that kind of in line with previous precedent, the council require written consent from there'll be written consent required from successor councils in respect of land disposals and contracts exceeding a specified threshold. So just highlighting there that the council will need to make sure that it does comply with those responsibilities. On pages 30 to 42, your pages 30 to 42, we have our value for money commentary against each of the criteria which we have to report on. So that's financial sustainability, arrangements for governance in terms of informed decision making, and also economy, efficiency and effectiveness. We do highlight, because we identified as members will recall, in relation to our value for money responsibilities, we identified a risk of significant weakness in terms of financial sustainability. Having undertaken our work, we didn't report any significant weaknesses, but we have made a recommendation regarding the financial challenges that do face the council, and the need to ensure that savings are delivered, and that the general fund reserves do not fall below the minimum levels which are set by the council. Management have provided a response to that recommendation, and happy to take any questions which members may have.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I was very pleased to especially see local government reorganisation being mentioned, and that paragraph was of huge interest to me, because that's one of the biggest challenges we will be facing in the next couple of years. I'm also happy to see there's no immediate risks and that there's no significant risks, because that was mentioned, and all the processes have been followed, which is perfect. So thank you for that report, and I will now open this item up for debate. So if anyone wants to speak, please indicate. Oh, thank you, yes.
Thank you. I have two questions. I think one's for external audit and the other will be more for Carolyn. I found the value for money report was very interesting. Actually, it was very good, I think, for the council. It's showing a lot is going really well, which is good to see. But what I'm interested in understanding is how you gained your comfort in the financial sustainability section of the work you did, when the work you were basing on that, you've issued 2 disclaimer opinions. And I just wonder, like, how you work that out in your mind, that, like, that's all good. And then for Carolyn, it's on page, page 25, where the progress is shown on how well you've done on each of the section. I think it'd just be useful to have an update on how you're progressing with the points that were raised by EY.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of our responsibilities, so we've got responsibilities in relation to auditing the financial statements, so the accounts audit, and then also we've got responsibilities at looking at the arrangements which the council has in place for value for money against the 3 criteria which I've outlined So in respect of the accounts, whilst we issued a disclaimer opinion, as you may recall at the last meeting, we highlighted that we had actually undertaken all of our planned procedures, and we reported within our audit results report where we had got assurances in terms of particular areas of the council's financial statements, and within your page 26, your page 26 of the report, it outlines there the process for moving in terms of rebuilding assurance, and it is something which has to be undertaken over a number of years. So then, in respect of the value for money, our value for money responsibilities, we do, in relation to financial risk sustainability, we do undertake a number of procedures in order to assess whether there are any significant weaknesses in arrangements. So looking at your budget setting arrangements, looking at the financial kind of management arrangements, looking at the levels of reserves that the council has in terms of the ability to cover any future kind of issues in terms of mitigating risks. So they're all issues which come to our consideration in coming up with whether or not there are any significant weaknesses in arrangements in relation to financial sustainability. I've mentioned that the financial position at Crawley is tight, but overall we're satisfied that there aren't any significant weaknesses in arrangements, but highlighting that going forward it is important to make sure that where the council has identified savings plans, that they are delivered, and also in terms of monitoring the financial position, that it doesn't fall below the minimum level of reserves which the council has set itself. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Councillor Hellier.
Thank you. I just have a question just in relation to page 26, and it's in relation to the previously that we were failing to produce our accounts in accordance with the planned timetable, and I just wondered where we are now with the current audit status and whether we will actually be on track as part of that.
So for our 24-25 audit, the financial statements were prepared in accordance with the timetable that was agreed. As was reported in the audit results report, we did manage to undertake all of our planned procedures. I'm optimistic that will continue for 25-26, and Caroline or Vicky might be able to provide more details in relation to that.
Yes, can I bring in Caroline, please?
Thank you. Yes, sorry, I'll take that one. Yes, sort of to address both Councillor Hellier's points and Catherine's points on that. Yes, we're on track. We have a detailed timetable that we work to make sure that we get everything done on time. And obviously, there's a few amber things here that show areas for improvement, and for some of that, we're building extra time for checking at the end to allow, because you need a good lot of time to check through and a good read through. We've been working on working papers to make sure they're sort of, useful for the auditors, and we do work with Hassan and his team on sort of the expectations in working papers and what's required. Some of it is about sort of valuation of our assets. Again, we work with the valuers quite closely and have regular meetings with them to make sure we're all on track to get the valuations in time, because once we get them, we then need to put them through our system, so we all have to sort of build that into the timetable. So yes, it's a good starting point, and we'll be building on 24-25. So
Okay, thank you. Councillor Belbin.
Thank you, Chair. This is just a quick comment on page 38. You make reference to the new failure to prevent fraud offences. And I just would like to highlight that our small 14 really work really hard and do report to the audit committee regularly and are normally very successful. I'm just wondering, is it just a review of what we're doing that you're insisting on? Have you looked at our reports that get presented to the committee regularly?
Thank you for that question. The reason that we've highlighted the new failure to prevent fraud offence is because it has come in. It's a new piece of legislation that has come in and been updated in October 2025, and it now places a responsibility on organisations to report under that particular under the failure to prevent fraud. It creates a new offence in terms of failure to prevent fraud and having to make sure that your arrangements are complying with that with that requirement. So it's not necessarily saying that there's any weaknesses in arrangements, but it's kind of highlighting that this act has kind of recently come into place, places new responsibilities on the council, and to make sure that you do have the arrangements to comply with those requirements.
Thank you. I was just trying to make the report, the comment that I do think our team are very responsible and do give us comprehensive reports very regularly, and we're always pleasantly surprised at how much they've saved the council each meeting. But yeah, we take on board that we've got to just be seen to be reviewing our policy. Maybe.
Okay, thank you. If there are no other comments, I guess I would... Oh, say it. Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Chair. It was just very quick, and thank you for drawing attention to page 17. I won't pretend I had actually missed that, and it was very interesting to see. You said the Section 24 of 2007 Act after structural changes, and of course that's eminently sensible that this council doesn't get itself tied in or dispose of assets that may be wanted by a subsequent authority. I was just wondering, are those figures set yet? And when will the date actually kick in when this council may be bound by the decisions of a future authority? I'm thinking about the amounts of an asset. So if we have decided to sell asset X now and it doesn't go through for a year, does that then mean there's effectively a veto on it of a future authority?
Okay. Firstly, the Secretary of State wrote to all chief execs and Section 151 officers last year, telling us to be mindful of, asset transfers, all those sort of things. As to when a Section 24 becomes legal, it depends. The latest point would be when the Shadow Council is established, which will be after the elections next May, but you can do it earlier than that. I think that will be a sort of a decision across West Sussex, but we have to be mindful of it already.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay, great. Are there any other comments? Okay, just before we move on then, I'd just like to point out that it is very positive that the reserves position, our reserves within the general fund reserves has increased from last time, which puts us in a slightly better financial situation, and also the overview of the conclusions. I do understand there's been a few identified actions which are needed, such as the improving the council's financial sustainability and the need to develop a collaborative approach to political and material management. I won't list them all, but it's very helpful that those outcomes have been so neatly laid out in the report. So that is very helpful to know what future things we need to look out for. So thank you. And also, this is obviously the last report from Hassan of this year. So I'd just like to thank you for your work for this year and for all the work that you've done on the committee. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. We'll soon
Yeah.
be moving on to 25, 26 quite shortly.
Oops. Oops. Oh, yeah. Sorry about that then. The recommendations is that the auditor's annual report of the year is being received and noted. So is that noted? Okay, cool, great. Oops. We don't need a form. Okay, cool, of course. We now move on to the internal audit charter and risk-based internal audit plan of 2026-2027 report, which starts on the page 47 of the agenda pack. So I'm going to take the presentation, discussion and voting on each document separately. So we will start with the charter, which is set out as Appendix A to the report and starts on page 51 on the agenda pack. So I will ask Keith Phillips, Assistant Head of Partnership for the Southern Internal Audit Partnership, to present the charter. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the paper before you contains two documents, the Internal Audit Charter and the Internal Audit Plan for 26-27. The Internal Audit Charter on pages 51 to 69, the Charter is a formal document that defines the purpose, authority and responsibilities of the Council's internal audit function, which is currently us, SIAP. Needs to be approved annually by the committee, and the version before you today is the same as that you approved back in September, except for it's just obviously changed the year. So there are no changes to the charter for you to note, really. So that's just for approval. Do you want me to continue to the plan, or? Yep. Okay. And the second paper of the sorry.
Okay, cool. So thank you for the first part of the presentation. So I will now open this item for debate. When referring to the page, please reference the page number of the agenda pack rather than the number on the individual report. So are there any speakers on this? Yep. Justin?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, the only thing I'd really written down is there any significant change? And you've said there isn't. Then I've written, if not, all good, because I've been very happy. Personally, I've been very happy with the job that's been done. So thank you.
Thank you.
So are there any other speakers on this? Okay, great. So, yeah. Yep. All committee members have had the opportunity to speak. I move that the comments made by the committee be taken into account and that the internal audit charter of 2026 or 2027 be approved. May I ask the Vice Chair to second, please?
I second.
Okay, great. May I have a show of hands for the motion? Okay, great. The motion has been carried. So we will now move on to the consideration of the risk-based internal audit plan, which is set out as Appendix B to the report and starts on page 70 of the agenda pack. So I will ask Keith Phillips, the Assistant Head of the Partnership for Southern Internal Audit, to present the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So as said, the second part of this report is the internal audit plan for 26-27, and before developing this plan this year, the Section 151 officer and I discussed the level of resource needed to provide sufficient coverage to support the annual conclusion. And this has resulted in a reduction of 40 days for 26-27, which I consider is appropriate. So to develop the plan, discussions were held with senior officers within the council and covered corporate risks, any areas of concern where additional oversight and assurance may be required. From those discussions, the potential reviews were identified and risk assessed by us in internal audit, and the list was then presented to the corporate management team to prioritise the reviews. And the outcome is the list that you've got in your pack on pages 77 to 80. And for those that didn't make the first list, we've got a list of contingency reviews on page 81, and this will act as a reserve list for us in the event that any of the plan reviews are unable to be progressed for any particular reason. You'll also note that we have included, again, a contingency for LGR, and this will enable us to provide any assurance and advisory services required as the council positions itself for local government reorganisation following the imminent decision. So I'm happy to take any questions on the internal audit plan for 26-27.
Right, thank you for the presentation. I will now open this item up for debate. Please indicate your wish to speak by raising your hand. Councillor Hellier, thanks.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you very much for the report. It's just a question just in relation to the contingency reviews and the first item, debt recovery management. Can I just ask why that's just a medium audit risk assessment and not perhaps a high, as it's quite pertinent to the council?
Yeah, so these are our internal audit assessment of the risk that we feel presents to the council. Generally, we just look across the board at all the information we've got. I mean, to be fair, everything would be considered high to make the list otherwise, and so we just reassess based on those values that we have in terms of knowing what we've got before and in terms of knowledge from previous reviews. And I mean, obviously debt recovery and debt management is important because obviously it's where you'll get all your income in, make sure you get all your income in. But from our perspective, it's just a medium. It doesn't mean it won't get done in the plan. They still will all be considered and progress through the year.
Yeah, and just to sort of put a little bit more meat on the bone, when it was discussed, we had a substantial sort of audit of local taxation. So we had council tax and business rates looked at last year, as you're aware. The current year still. I'm already rolling forward. And the year before, we looked at corporate debt, and they were all reasonable assurance, which sort of lends towards the medium risk rather than being high risk. I think if we'd had bad audits, then we would probably have ended up with a different conclusion.
Yeah, thank you. I wondered, Keith, if you feel that management is challenging itself enough on its choice of audits. When I took a look at the progress report, there's a lot of really positive results of reasonable and substantial assurance. And I just wondered, do you feel the conversations have been challenging enough to ensure that those that might have an issue are coming to the forefront?
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. Yes, I feel that the engagement and that we are being pointed to the right areas to look at within our discussions, and we also use the horizon scanning document, which is on the back of the plan. I don't think there's any sort of hiding or pushing us towards easier reviews. The feeling I get is we have good conversations in all the discussions with the senior managers and heads of service going forward into those discussions. And everyone's quite open and transparent with us. So I think, the plan does reflect that. Also, we've covered a lot of the stuff over the last, 3 years? 3 years. So as Caroline said, it's, that's taken into consideration as well. So yeah, I feel it is an appropriate plan. Thank you.
Caroline, thank you.
And just from the sort of officer point of view, yes, we challenged the plan. That's why it goes to CMT and it's challenged by all sort of 10 members. And I feel the reason the audits are improving is because we started in a position of quite a sort of backlog where we hadn't been audited for a number of years. So we've sort of really used SIAP to give us really useful baseline information. So if we feel that there's something where we want to rock to sort of, no stone left unturned, we will use them to do that as well as providing the reassurance for the sort of standard, like the financial audits. We always have to have those so you can have your assurance at the end of the year. But I do feel you know, even in the 3 years that I've been at Crawley, the sort of standards of what we're being audited, and we know what to expect and how to interact. But we do challenge ourselves, yes.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Okay, great. I guess I would just like to note the success of the report. The report has, according to the report, has achieved a good result, and we have fully achieved 46 out of the 52 standards, and generally generally achieving the rest of the 6 standards, which is fantastic to see. So it's good we're making progress in that. I move that the comments made by the committee, well, there really hasn't been, okay. So I move that this report is noted, and can I ask the Vice Chair to second?
Yeah.
I move that this report is approved, and can I please ask the Vice Chair to second?
Yeah, I second.
Yep. Thank you very much for that. Can I have a show of hands? Right, thank you. Right. We are moving on to the internal audit progress report. So we will now move on to this report, which starts on page 89 of the agenda pack. So I will ask Vanessa Anthony, the audit manager for Southern Internal Audit Partnership, to please present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the progress report up until the end of February 2026. The key parts of the report, just to note, section 7 is the rolling work programme on your page 96 of the report pack, which shows the rolling work programme with all of the reviews for the year well underway. There have been no adjustments to the plan, nor have there been any limited or no assurance reports issued since the last update in December. In terms of the overdue outstanding high actions, again, there's no real update on these for 2 reasons. The first being that for the vast majority, the revised dates haven't yet passed. Those are after the date of this committee. And there are a couple of actions for food safety, which we note there are officers here to answer any questions the committee may have, which are those actions listed on page 105 to 107 of the report. There are a number of medium and low priority actions where the revised implementation dates haven't been received, but those are all clearly set out on page 108 and 110. The only other area to really note is the performance figures on page 111. They are slightly lower than the previous reports. However, that is mainly down to a number of the reports having been issued as draft, and we're still progressing the management actions and agreement to be able to finalise those reports. But overall, we're still on track for delivery of the audit plan to feed into the annual conclusion, which will be presented to the July committee.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. I will now open up the debate to the committee. If there are any comments or speeches, or yep, Councillor Hellier, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. Just a couple of things, really. On page 96 in the table, there is under stock condition survey, there is actually a typo under the final report column. You put 12-12-125. So I just happened to note that when I was reading that. But also, under temporary accommodation on the same page, when can we expect the fieldwork to start on that?
Thank you. That one, at the time of producing the report, early February, we hadn't started it then, but I can report we've started and finished the field work. So we're just in the final stages of our quality review with the close of audit meeting already scheduled.
Great, thank you. Councillor Delbert.
I just would like to bring in personal experience with food safety. I do believe in Crawley, we've had lots of people working from home doing charitable things, and they may have had to have a licence many years ago. Obviously there was quite a backlog, but I know our officers are going through them, and because one of my residents contacted me, and I actually went out with a food safety officer and saw how efficient they are and how they are trying to work through this backlog of lots of people maybe that have just done registered many years ago, and would just like to reassure the committee how impressed I was on Friday actually going out with our staff. I don't know whether Calvin would like to comment.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My officer, Sarah, she went out with you, didn't she? I knew all about this. Yeah, we're there to educate as well as enforce. So we do try our hardest to accommodate in inspections and to bring people along rather than just looking at enforcement all the time. So yeah, I was aware of it. We had a good conversation about that in the office, and we were we were happy to help.
Thank you. Yep, Catherine.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it looks like you're making, really good progress getting through all the internal audit reports for the year. And I think, Vanessa, you're confident you'll complete the action plan. I think that's what you said. I spent a bit of time looking at the audit review and the high audit overdue management actions. And I have a general question about if it's getting maybe sufficient attention at CMT, because there's quite a few that haven't been updated for quite some time, and the actions are very out of date. And I know the food safety, we have the officers here to speak to what action that they have done on the management action, to give the committee some idea of where we are now that, time's gone on a bit, and that would be really helpful. But I'd probably say, do we have a concern about what's happening at CMT, that so many of the high priority actions are not updated or current? Maybe if we start with the food safety, though, to get the update as you're here.
Good evening. Yes, and absolutely happy to give an update in terms of the food safety or audit report. That's what we're here to do today. So in terms of the management actions that were outlined for that particular report, and just to be clear, this was about assurance on the identification, inspection and enforcement of newly identified or unregistered food businesses. So there on the update table, you can quite rightly see that there were a number of overdue actions, and what I can update the committee is that all of the high risk management actions have actually been completed, and were completed actually well in time, of receiving the report as well. Some of the medium outstanding actions actually relate to policy areas. So whilst we have drafted a new food safety policy, that needs to go through the appropriate governance channels here, and will be presented to the Cabinet Member for Environment over the coming weeks for consideration, and then we'll need to go through our governance processes here. But just for reassurance, Kelvin and his team have been working in the background to make sure that all of those proper protocols and policy proposals that were identified in the audit have been put in place as well. And then some of those low actions actually relate to, a lot of it is about actually introducing a food safety policy here for Crawley Borough Council. But just for also reassurances purposes, the team have actually been complying with all the legislative requirements as set out in the Food Code of Practice. It's just that what we needed to do was actually have a proper policy here for Crawley Borough Council, and those are the things that are in train in terms of governance. But the other high risk actions have all been completed. Is there anything further you wanted to add, Kelvin?
Just wanted to add that the Food Law Code of Practice has been updated, and some of the issues with new food businesses registration have been addressed by that. So we've put in place new protocols and new procedures to help govern that.
And I just want to give that further reassurance that actually what was pleasing to see actually in the assurance report was that our enforcement is sound, which is obviously very, very, very important. It gives that level of assurance for not only the council, but obviously our residents as well, and that all our officers are very competent and maintain their continuing professional development as well. But happy to take any further questions.
Okay, are there any further questions on this? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think it's my turn to reassure the audit committee that, yes, of course, CMT take the progress reports very seriously. It went to CMT. I do believe there's a slight communication problem where some of the answers weren't received in time again, and we were looking at sort of developing a new process for that, but unfortunately that member of staff, I've had to pull them off to do another project. But I think for the next one, we'll be more careful about the paperwork because it underrepresents the actual progress that's been made. So yeah, I'm working with Vanessa on that, and we'll improve on that. But they definitely, I mean, you know, SIAP go to CMT, they report them, and we did go away to check them, and then somehow the updates didn't get updated. So that's something that we as officers can definitely improve on.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay, great. Before we move on, I did actually want to mention my biggest concern with the report was the overdue electrical. I just need to get back to where I was. My biggest concern with the report was the overdue electrical checks for safety in our housing stock. This is as of 2 years ago, it was 1,199, and this was 15%, which were overdue. And I do take note that the report said that they were going to prioritise those checks. So, is there any way we can have an update on that? I'm sure you probably don't have the figures to hand now, which is fine. But is there any way we can have an update on that in the future? Or?
Just on that, Chair, so we do meet with the interim asset manager monthly to keep track of all of the regulatory compliance reviews. I think it's not wanting to speak on his behalf, but part of the update on the electrical safety was with the result of the Legionella being a no assurance review. They've obviously prioritised taking immediate action on those actions because that one was quite high risk, whereas the electrical safety, the part that's actually still outstanding is progressing cases that don't meet the timescales or where they can't get access to do the checks. They've reduced that to, I think it's 99.05 was the last update we had from the interim asset manager. But the part that's outstanding, which means this action isn't closed, is actually reporting the no access cases to legal to get legal to pursue those. So once that is addressed, this action will be fully addressed. But the electrical safety checks are pretty close to being 100% compliant now.
Okay, yeah, that is actually very reassuring to hear, because yes, I was concerned about that, and I'm glad to hear that that is progressing, and I'm glad to hear that that's been prioritised. So thank you. So all committee members have had the opportunity to speak, unless there's any last-minute speeches. No, okay. The recommendation is that the internal audit progress report be noted. So are we all happy with this recommendation? Okay, great. Okay. We will now move on to the internal audit, internal quality assessment, the final report, which starts on page 113 of the agenda pack. So I will ask Keith Phillips, Assistant Head of the Partnership for Southern Internal Audit Partnership, to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So with the introduction of the Global Internal Audit Standards, the requirement for an independent assessment of internal audit still remains. At the September committee, a paper was presented on explaining the approach that was being taken for our external quality assessment within the partnership, and that once the assessment was completed, that we'd share the outcome with you, and this is what this paper is. So within your pack on pages 113 to 143, you have the covering report, which provides a good summary of the assessment and outcome. The external assessor's final report, and that's Appendix A on 117 to 138, and an action plan in response to the assessment, and that's Appendix B, 139 to 143. So, firstly, I'd like to say how we were actually pleased with the positive conclusion and the outcome from this assessment, and the assessor himself acknowledged that it was one of the most comprehensive he'd seen at that date. He's obviously probably done some more since. We're also pleased to have fully achieved on 46 out of the 52 standards and generally achieved for the remaining 6. If I can draw your attention to the table on top of page 115. So basically that shows the 5 domains from the standards in the first column, and then it shows the 52 standards spread across 4 of those domains and whether we fully achieve them or generally achieve. You will note that there's no, the standards for SIAP are all under green columns, which is very good. And just for clarity, domain 1, which is the purpose of internal auditing, it doesn't have any standards attached to it, as it's basically a purpose statement and not an operational requirement. So that basically contains high-level statements explaining how internal audit contributes to governance, risk management and control. I would also like to highlight paragraph 4.7 under that table, which contextualises why the overall assessment isn't fully achieved. So the Institute of Internal Auditors requirement to fully achieve, you have to fully achieve on every standard. So if you just generally achieve on one, you can't fully achieve overall. I think it's also important to acknowledge that there are no formal recommendations from the assessment. However, there are some potential areas of focus for us to where the assessor felt we can make further improvements. And whilst not a requirement, we have put together an action plan, which is the Appendix B to this paper on pages 139 to 143, to help us move towards achieving some of those. Whilst there are 6 standards where we generally conform, one of these is, and you may recall the conversation around strategies we had at a previous committee you would have had, one of this is that as a multi-service provider, we will probably never achieve fully conforms without separate strategies for each partner. And that's not really practical. 2 are outside of our control and they sit with our partner organisations. And for the 3 that were within our gift to do something with, 2 are already objectives in our strategy, and another is just a simple addition to our reports to you to explain why any high-risk areas or reviews have not been included in the plan. So there'd be a section in the reports going forward for that. These are all explained in more detail on the action plan if you wanted me to go into any more detail on the 6. Other than that, do you have any questions relating to the assessment?
Right, thank you for your report. I will now open up this debate to the committee. So are there any comments, speeches? Yeah, Catherine.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very good report. You rightfully are very pleased with it. I just wondered, so you have in your action plan a number of target dates that were the first quarter. Are you on track to meet those target dates? I think it starts on page 140 around there?
Yes, thank you, Catherine. So a lot of these things are already baked into our sort of going forward strategy anyway. In terms of target dates, so the first one in there, we fully achieved that standard anyway, but we were moving towards more ethical dilemmas and having those conversations. So in the partnership we have away days or learning days, so we're starting to build that in, making sure that all the auditors are aware of the ethical and have those courageous conversations and things like that. So slowly moving towards that. I don't think I'd say it was fully completed. What else did we have? Yep, so in terms of on page 140, where we generally achieve standards 6.3 and 8.1, we've actually done that. So as part of our pre-work, we put together a sort of checklist for authorities for all our partners and did a sort of assurance map against those. And then we've had those discussions and pushed out where we think those authorities need to do something. For Crawley, I don't believe there were any, which was good. But as an example for other partners, some of it might be that the terms of reference for the audit committee aren't quite in alignment with SIPFA. And that might be things like, a purpose statement or things like that. So what we've done is fed that back to the authorities, and hopefully they'll be able to use that, because I think from this year you have to have a statement in the AGS which says you comply with the global internal audit standards as well. So to do that, they need to action all those things that we've pushed back to them. But I say for Crawley, there weren't any that were coming out. And I think all the other targets are pretty much in the future. So hopefully we'll hit them by next time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay, great. Well, I guess I would just like to say, it's very heartening that we have fully achieved 46 of the 52 standards, and the rest are progressing. That's a very positive outcome, and the opportunities for improvement in the 4.8 and 4.9. It's very helpful to have these as well, so we know where we're going into the future, and it is obviously very important to note that there are no formal recommendations on the report as well. That's important to note too. So thank you for your report, and thank you. Yep, so all committee members have had the opportunity to speak. The recommendation is that the report The report of the external assessor following the internal quality assessment of the Southern Internal Audit Partnership against the global internal audit standards in the UK public sector, and the action plan developed against suggested opportunities for the future development is noted. So are we all happy with this recommendation? Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. We will now move on to the next report. We will now move on to the internal audit quality survey, which
Apologies, Chair. I was too desperate to get out, wasn't I?
I was a bit confused there, because I was like, I need to call you again.
Yeah, I would have been through the door.
Yeah, I was like, what's going on? Anyway, so if I would like to call Keith again to present the internal audit quality survey, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry about that. Apologies. Basically, this is just a reminder that we do an annual survey, and it was to say that you should have received an email March the 2nd, to all committee members, senior officers, and anyone that we've had contact with during audits. I just wanted to raise awareness because it comes from a strange email address, I think, if I'm right. So it is genuine. And obviously, I'd encourage you all to complete that survey because it helps us going forward to improve our service to you. And apologies, I was trying to run away too quick.
Do we have any comments on this? Okay.
Just very quickly. Thank you for the reminder. Sometimes we need a bit of a kick up the bum, so thank you.
Yes, it's definitely important for that to be completed. And obviously, before you guys go, I would like to thank you both for the work you have done on the committee. For 2 years I've been chair, it's been very helpful. And those quarterly meetings that we have had have been, which me and Councillor Belbam have attended as part of our capacity roles, those have been very helpful as well. And it has been a pleasure to work with you for the time that I have been chair of this committee. So thank you for all your work and enjoy your evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, so this recommendation has been carried. Thank you. Oh yeah. So the recommendation is that the committee note to request to complete the survey. So do we all agree with this recommendation? Okay, great. Right, so we will now move on to the update on counter fraud, which starts on page 145 on the agenda pack. So I will ask Stuart Small, the Deputy Fraud Manager, to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully you've all had a chance to look at the report for this period. This report covers a period of 1st of November 2025 to the 28th of February 2026. If we go straight to 4.1, the current cases that we're working on, as you can see, it stays round about the same. We're currently working on 48 live cases when this was taken on the 1st of March. As I said, it's up 2 from last time. They range from council tax support cases, housing cases, which can be sublet, non-occupation or housing applications. Still have 1 fly tip case on there at the moment. Right to buys, as we said before, have drastically gone down the amount we look at now due to the discount changing. And single person discount cases. If we go to 4.2, these are the results we've achieved in this period and the year to date. So from the period of 1st of November to 28th of February, we have recovered 3 properties at a total value of 3 properties at the total value that we classed as £81,900. There were no right to buys during this period, and allocations prevented during this period was 9 properties or 9 allocations that we prevented. These are people who are either on the housing register, and we established that for whatever reason they've either given false information, they've not given the true information, they may have somewhere else to live, other properties that they've owned or tenancies. So the total value for the fraud for this period that we saved is 191,100. The year to date is 11 properties recovered and 16 allocations prevented, with 8 right to buys. So that boosts the total up to a savings of approximately £1,361,100. As we said before, they're based on our own figures. The 27,300 we pay out at £75 per night on temporary accommodation. If we go to 4.3, which is the council tax and business rates, in period the inspectors have added to the council tax liability £113,395.20. These are properties that they've either brought back into the council tax liability or new properties that they've put on with the valuation office. Non-domestic rates, as you can see, is rather huge for this period. It's £3,228,080. I believe this was due to a hotel, which is quite a large amount on it. So that's where they get it into the valuation system quite quickly. If we go to part 5.1, sorry, significant cases. If you remember at the last meeting, our stats were normally a little bit lower than what we'd like, and I said I would explain a bit more at the next meeting. This goes back to this case that we were carrying out. We had a RIPA application, which is Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act. We have to go to a magistrate's because we were doing a surveillance on a council tenant. We had information saying that they weren't living at the property, possibly subletting it. They were also claiming council tax reduction, housing benefit, and they had actually put in a right to buy application on the property, and they would have had a discount of £102,300. We conducted a surveillance case over the period of about a month. Two of my investigators were at the properties every morning. One was at our council tenancy and one at the property where we suspected the person to be living at. During that month, our tenant never went back to the council property. And we saw them every morning leave the other address where we suspected them to be. We tried to interview them on a number of occasions, but it was never completed due to a number of reasons, which I don't think I need to go through at this moment in time. But at the end of the day, they voluntarily gave a notice to quit. So we had the property back, which is a saving of £27,300. We prevented the right to buy, which would have been a discount they would have had of £102,300. There is a council tax reduction saving, an overpayment of £1,923.74, which I believe is being paid back, and a housing benefit overpayment of £7,352.45. So the total savings on this case on its own is £138,876.19. The housing benefit overpayment on this one, we don't investigate housing benefit fraud, it's Department of Work and Pensions, so it has been forwarded on to them to decide if they want to take it further. That is the report. If there are any questions on any parts of it, including the significant case, I'd like to answer if I can.
Thank you for that report, Stuart. Are there any questions? Councillor Barrett.
Thanks as always for the report, and to echo Councillor Belbin's comments in the earlier agenda item, thanks for the work of the team. I'd be interested to learn whether you undertake any benchmarking around the number of cases and also the type of cases compared with other local authorities of a similar size, similar demographic to Crawley, and whether there are any insights from that you might be able to share with the committee. Appreciate that might need to come to a future meeting.
We talk to a lot of the fraud teams around the area. There's not many within Sussex. I think Chichester have 2 officers who deal with council tax reduction only, as they don't have any housing stock. Worthing, I believe, have 1 officer. Arran have 1. Horsham don't have any. Mid Sussex don't have any. Mid Sussex actually farm out their fraud work to Wilden Council, who do it for them. We do, as I said, we liaise with a lot of councils. Similar size, I would say, to us is Ashford, who have a large fraud team who we work with quite closely and talk to quite a lot. We're actually talking to them at the moment about how they work on their temporary accommodation fraud that they're looking at, the high values there. So we're trying to bring ours down by learning from other teams and going that way what we can do.
Thank you. Councillor Hellier, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for the report. It's just really in relation to sort of the number of potential frauds that we could have. Do we actually pursue for any form of damages or anything? Because there's an awful lot of time and effort put into everything, and it's one thing to hear that people, and it's good that they surrender their leases and things like that, but I just wondered if we actually take it further.
If we were to prosecute a case, then damages would be awarded, but normally the damages awarded by court aren't very high. They don't normally cover the costs of prosecuting. I'm sure that Jane will be able to tell you that going forward. What we do try to do is we tend to try to get the properties back without going down the court route if we can, because it's quicker. We had a case recently where we were looking at the civil action to get a property back, and we were told by one of the housing managers that if they fight it, the civil case could take a year to get them out. From our point of view, a year is quite a lot of time and money with someone in temporary accommodation. So if we can get them out quick and move people from temporary accommodation into our properties, it's the best way forward.
Councillor Belbin, thank you.
I doubt whether we can quantify this, but I just wonder how much of a deterrent your team is to people out there thinking about doing false claims for right to buy, etc., because there must be a greater saving for the mere fact that we've got this team and other areas haven't. It must be public knowledge out there. You know, people do hear of these cases, presumably, if they're following the news because they're interested for whatever reason. It would be, I should imagine the figures could be easily, I don't know, 3 times the saving. Would you hazard a guess as to what the potential multiplier would be?
I think the National Audit Office recently, within the last couple of years, estimated it to be around 4% of fraud within local authorities. I think when we calculate ours, we take it down to 2% on our figures. I'd have to find them and I'll be able to tell you exactly what 2% of our figures would be. It's on our training slides we give when we do it to other teams. But I think 2% of our housing stock is about 160 properties, I want to say, something like that. I might be completely wrong. But then you look at single person discount, what is about. Single person discount, as you're well aware, we do an exercise every year where we match it with the electoral roll, which has actually been matched at the moment. We're waiting to take the next step and send the letters out. So that is something that we will be doing shortly. As to how much notice we get out there, I was on social media today on one of my cases, and there was a comment on one of the social media sites about potential fraud. And the comments ranged from other people, report it to the fraud team at Crawley, they always look at it, to, as you can imagine, less complimentary comments. But yeah, it's out there that what we do. And one of the things we do is on mutual exchanges, it's easy enough for us to look at our housing applications and cases coming in because we want to stop it getting into our system. But we look at mutual exchanges from outside of the area because other councils might not have a stringent fraud deterrent. And if someone's exchanging from a property outside to our area, we want to have a look before they come in to make sure it's all correct.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on this report?
I was interested on the case that you highlighted, which was brought to your attention by a whistleblower, I think you said. I wondered, like, would that have come across to your team in some other way if you didn't have a whistleblower? Or were there any lessons from that where you think, oh, I might change my processes to find something like that?
Yeah, this particular one came about by an anonymous referral, but it was at the same time as the right to buy application came in. And at that point, well, we go through every right to buy application. So we would have done a home visit, would have found an unannounced one, we would have found them not there, possibly someone else there. What I will say with this particular one is this person was known to us. So as soon as it came in, it was one where we were like, okay, right, let's have a in-depth look, because we had a number of referrals previously that we've looked at.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay, great. I guess I would just like to say, yeah, this team is unique to this council. Not every council in the country has one, and I think it's to our benefit. And the work that is done and the significant savings, especially the significant case which was mentioned, and the saving on that was over 100 grand, which is massive. And I think, you know, that's money that can go back into the system, and that could go to help someone else, and the properties recovered and the allocation prevented. All this is significant work, and I hope it doesn't go undervalued. So thank you. So all committee members have had the opportunity to speak. The recommendation is that the report be noted. Are we all happy with this recommendation? Okay. Great, thank you. Right, so we will now move on to the accounting policies report for the 2025 and 2026 and 2026-2027, which starts on 149 of the agenda pack. So I will ask Vicky Baisley, the Chief Accountant, to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so it's good practice to bring you the accounting policies for approval for the year ahead. So these are the policies for the 26-27 financial statements. So the policies are the principles, rules and practices we use in preparing the financial statements. They're broadly the same as were approved for this year. However, this year it has been updated slightly to reflect updates to the CIPFA Accounting Code of Practice, which is in relation to valuation cycles for assets, so how we value our assets. So now we sort of have quinquennial revaluations, which is my new favourite word, and use indexation for those that are not formally revalued. And obviously we're working with our valuers to ensure we comply with the requirements on that. So we also have to look forward to accounting standards that have not yet been adopted but come into force for 26-27. However, there's nothing that will have a material impact on the council. So yes, just good practice to bring you the policies for the year ahead.
Thank you for that report. Are there any comments on this report? Okay, it seems there's no comments. Sorry, I didn't see you there.
Yeah, thank you. I wondered if you could indicate, say, of the accounting policies, which maybe require the most judgment working through the accounting policies. And then kind of related to that, in the work that external audit did, there were two, I don't know if you'd say an error. I don't think it was an error, but there was two times where the judgment was questioned, and one was on pensions and one was on property. I don't remember the detail in that. And both of those are referenced in the accounting policies. And I guess I'm not clear if the difference in judgment is because you were not doing what was said in your accounting policy, or if what was set out in the accounting policy was different than what EY wanted. And was there anything to do with those policies that meant that we wouldn't see that again from EY?
Thank you. Yes, with our policies, we follow the CIPFA Code of Practice, and we base our policies around those. In terms of judgments, it is really sort of asset valuations, and broadly they're in a line, but sometimes you do get sort of difference of expert opinion of valuers, because we use valuers, and EY have their own sort of in-house valuers, and I think that was in last year was one of the sort of the things that came up in the audit report. So that's probably the biggest area, because that's the biggest part of the balance sheet is our asset valuations. And generally we will sort of discuss it with our valuers, and the EY valuers will have a conversation, and sometimes on the odd occasion they may agree to disagree, and I think that was the one misstatement on valuations that we didn't put through last time, and it wasn't material. If it was material, then we would sort of go through until we sort of consensus of opinion on it. So yes, so that's the biggest area, and yes, pensions. It's the specialist actuary gives us our pensions figures So we have to rely on those, and they get audited separately. So, but yes, I think those are the key areas where there may be sort of, judgments. But there is a disclosure note in the accounts on our judgments as well. So we do list them there.
Thank you. Are there any other speeches? Okay, fantastic. All committee members have had the opportunity to speak. There are 2 recommendations set out in the report, and I will deal with these separately. So, recommendation 1 requests that the committee reviews and considers the adequacy of the accounting policies which underpin the preparations of the financial statements. I will move that the committee confirm its satisfaction with the adequacy of the policies. May I have the Vice Chair second, please?
I second.
Thank you. May I have a show of hands for the motion, please? Cool. That motion has been carried. I move recommendation 2 that the committee approve the accounting policies that will be applied to the 2025 to 2026 and 2026 to 2027 financial statements. May I have the Vice Chair second, please?
I second.
Thank you. May I have a show of hands for the motion? Thank you. That's carried. So, thank you for your report. Thank you. Right. We will now move on to the risk management update, which starts on page 169 on the agenda pack. I will ask Anna Pedlow, Corporate Performance Manager, to present this report.
Thank you, Chair. The report provides an update from the last audit committee, which was on the 18th of November. So we begin with section 7 of the report, which starts on page 170 and goes onwards from there. So just to begin with risk 1, which has just been revised to the title of financial resilience, and that's regarding the medium-term budget sustainability. So before it was about maintaining a balanced budget, but the risk description and mitigations have been updated to reflect the 3-year local government finance settlement, which was for 26, 27, 28 to 29, which has provided certainty and significantly improved the Council's medium-term financial outlook, with a balanced budget for 26, 27 and forecast for 27, 28. Consequently, the inherent risk score has reduced from 25 to 15, and the residual risk score has also reduced from 20 to 10. So that's quite a significant reduction in our overall score for that particular risk, because we're actually in quite a positive position, but we'll obviously keep that under review. Risk 2, which is the homelessness and temporary accommodation risk. Just a little bit more in terms of some of the mitigations have been updated, just to reflect that we've just approved the commissioning of a trial with a private provider that aims to reduce the number of households in temporary accommodation through a process of income maximisation, helping with securing permanent accommodation in the private rented sector and tenancy sustainment for at least 12 months. The risk scores still remain unchanged, as we are still awaiting confirmation of Home Office new burdens funding for temporary accommodation, which is obviously linked to risk 1 in terms of the budget side as well. But that just gives a little update in terms of sort of some other mitigations around sort of temporary accommodation provision. Risk 5 is regarding the delivery of the affordable housing programme. That's just a minor update just to reflect the increase in building costs, which obviously has had an impact on sort of building over the last few years. But obviously to mitigate this, the Council does continue to review costs associated with its own programme to ensure value for money delivery. Private sector interest remains strong, which obviously should help release things moving forward, obviously with the water neutrality restrictions having been lifted. But the scores still remain unchanged despite that slight update. Risk 6, which is the impact of lifting water neutrality, as you'll recall at the last audit committee, the risk appetite remained as cautious as we were at the start of what was going to be a huge workload of work and going through complex applications. Because of the positive progress that is being made, working through the backlog of the planning cases, the risk appetite has been reduced to mindful. So again, that's a positive direction of travel for that risk. Risk 12, which is regarding our social housing regulatory requirements. There's just been some updates around the commentary for that particular risk. The description around the transparency and accountability standards. So there's some work that our Crawley Homes senior management team are undertaking to develop actions to embed conduct and competency, and there's a plan that needs to be in place by October 26, which will cover the 3-year period of transition. That's currently underway, and that will be monitored by the new Landlord Assurance Board for that particular piece of work. Other mitigations that have been updated obviously include the work with the regulator for social housing through the provider improvement phase. We have a bespoke strategy and action plan to address obviously any weaknesses that were identified in the inspection. The action plan is monitored bi-monthly by the regulator to ensure delivery, and our Crawley Homes senior management team also monitor this on a monthly basis. And as mentioned previously, the Landlord Assurance Board will also be monitoring and scrutinising delivery of that action plan as well. And just a final update regarding safety and the quality standards. So currently at around 6,000 plus stock condition surveys have been completed, which has resulted in a rise of demand for responsive repairs, but anecdotally, major works largely reflect what was known about the stock. Once the full cycle has been completed, detail work will be undertaken to confirm the impact on the 30-year Housing Revenue Account business plan. But overall, the risk scores remain unchanged, but that just gives it a little bit of an update into some of the work that's carrying on there under that risk. And finally, risk 13, which is the recruitment, retention and succession planning. The mitigations have been updated within the context of local government reorganisation. Currently, turnover has reduced and recent recruitment, even for more challenging and senior roles, has been successful. Our recent staff survey continues to show strong commitment to the council and the town, and whilst there is uncertainty about LGR, staff are also recognising the opportunities. Obviously, this will be closely monitored and the scores reassessed if we start to see a change of sentiment. Over time, the strategies applied will shift from being more council-specific to joint council approaches, bringing forward other opportunities. But obviously, in the meantime, work will continue in this area, and obviously the focus is on still investing in staff, both around essential training and preparing for LGR. As you'll recall, previously, the committee had previously expressed the residual risk score should remain at 12 and not 9 when we have mitigations in place, as it believed the council would have some recruitment and retention issues because of LGR. But as the mitigations have expressed, the current turnover has reduced and recent recruitment has been successful. So the residual risk score will remain at 9, as we feel that the current position is sustainable at this time. But like everything is kept under review. So anything, if this should change, then obviously we can revisit that again. But that's just to give you some reassurance on that risk. Those are sort of the main updates within the risk register. Otherwise, everything else still reflects the council's current position for strategic risks. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. So thank you for the presentation. One of the recommendations on this report is to determine whether there are any matters in relation to the register which the committee would like to be drawn to the attention of the chief executive or the cabinet. With this in mind, if you'd like a specific comment to be brought to their attention, please make it clear during debate, and Mez will make notes for when we come to the vote. So I will now open up the discussion, so please indicate if you'd like to speak. Councillor Barrett, thank you.
Thank you. It'd be helpful to understand whether any consideration's been given to the potential impact of unforeseen external events on our ability to maintain service delivery, and whether a broader category considering sort of external development should be added to the risk register. So obviously we've had pandemics in the past, but I'm thinking of future issues such as fuel supply risks that might have an impact. Has any thought been given to that, or is that something that could be potentially escalated? Thank you.
I don't know whether our other heads of service that are here that have any discussion at CMT. I don't think anything's been raised at this point, but I would imagine, like anything, the register it's a live register. We keep it regularly under review. So if there is any significant change, I would imagine our corporate management team would take an approach on that. I'm looking to my colleagues to see if there is anything other to add.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Yes, I mean, CMT, as part of our role, is to do that sort of horizon scanning, a bit like, as was mentioned when we had Zurich in to do the sort of risk management training. So we are, for example, aware that there's a war that has affected fuel prices, which means that, there'll be a knock-on for inflation. So yes, we do, but it's not a specific category because you wouldn't be able to score it. It's sort of, it's part of the process.
Thank you. Are there any other? Yep. Councillor Rana, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to talk about risk to homelessness. I mean, say those people are in temporary accommodation and they get moved to private rented accommodation, and sometimes probably the landlords only want them for about a year or 2 years, and then they said, no, sorry, you have to vacate and go somewhere else. So what happens then? Do they get offered permanent residence in one of like a council house or social housing or whatever?
I'm sorry, it's not one that we can answer at this committee. We'll pass your query on and they'll have to give you a written answer, but it's not really related to the risk register. But we will answer your query.
Okay, Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Chair. There wasn't anything specific about any specific risk, but just a general observation and to say thank you for the report because it's very comprehensive, and I've gone through it, and obviously we do have risks and worries. I mean, first of all, the 3-year settlement I think is fantastic, and the fact that has made things a lot easier for us as a council going forward is something that we do need to acknowledge and do need to recognise. Secondly, I mean, yes, we do have the problem of the homelessness and the temporary accommodation. But the projects, I think they've been discussed at OSC of working with the particular company, is providing alternatives as well. And the progress, I think I would want myself on the audit committee to acknowledge the progress that's been done on planning. The water neutrality changes did mean that there could be, I've used this once already, but the floodgates could open after the ending of water neutrality. Sorry, but it is good to see that's been worked through, and it's fantastic. So really, all I'm saying here is thank you very much for the comprehensive risk review and the discussion and the update. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay, I guess I'll go through my comments then. So I was very pleased to hear about the 3-year local government finance settlement. That's definitely very welcome, and it's probably alleviated a lot of pressure and a lot of risks to this council. The risk too with the temporary accommodation. I mean, I've been concerned about the cost of temporary accommodation and the significant risk the costs of that make to our council. So I was actually very welcome to see that highlighted, and the mitigation plans that has been done. It's that to me is one of the biggest risks to our council. So that was extremely welcome to see that, and I note that obviously more government intervention is needed, and I see that's noted. But yeah, I was very pleased to see that as well. And I was also very obviously pleased to see the work on the climate emergency risk, and I was very proud when this government did when this council did declare that emergency, and I note that all the mitigation works is still ongoing, which is fantastic. So, and it was a very interesting read and very important read as well. So I'm very pleased to see that these risks have been identified and have been addressed in some form, and the mitigation column was very helpful. So thank you. So are there any other discussions before I move on? Okay. All right, great. So all committee members have had the opportunity to speak. There are two separate recommendations set out in the report, and I will deal with these separately. So recommendation 1 is that the committee confirms its satisfaction with the risk management arrangements. So can I ask the vice chair to second this?
I second.
Thank you very much. So can I have all hands shown for this motion? Okay, great. That motion has been carried. So there was a comment from Councillor Russell, which we need to move. Is that?
I think that was a question.
Oh, okay, great. Okay.
So, do you want me to just chip in?
Yeah.
Sorry. Just to say that it will be minuted that there's an outstanding question that will be passed round to the committee once we've received an answer relating to it was Councillor Rana about private rented accommodation.
With regard to recommendation 2, no comments were moved during the debate. I therefore move that no comments be drawn to the attention of the Chief Executive or Cabinet on this occasion. Are we in agreement? Okay, great. So, we will now move on to the provisional list for future reports for this committee, which is included on pages 191 to 192 of the agenda pack. We will take this item as read, but does anyone wish to comment on the programme? Please indicate your wish to speak. Okay, great. So all members have had the opportunity to speak on this, and so there are 2 recommendations on this, so I will deal with them separately. With recommendation 1, no revisions were moved. I therefore move that the committee has reviewed the provisional list of future items and does not wish to make any further revisions. Is that correct? Okay, cool. There's no formal vote needed for that. Okay, great. Yeah, this one. Yeah. So do we all agree with the recommendation? Okay, great. So recommendation 2 is that the committee approve the provisional list. So do we all agree with that? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, cool. So that's all sorted. So there is no supplementary agenda, but since this is our last meeting of this council year, I have a few things I would like to say. First of all, this may be my last meeting as chair, depending on what happens next year. So first of all, I would just like to thank the committee for putting up with me for 2 years now, and I have tried. So I would also like to thank all the officers as well who are involved in what makes this committee run. The officers are the backbone of this committee, and they are professionals, and this this committee and the whole council would not work without them. And it has been a joy to chair this committee. I would especially like to thank the Labour Group for supporting me to chair this committee for the past 2 years. It has been a honour. And I would also like to thank all the councillors who have served on this committee for the last 2 years. I have been chair, and I would also like to wish everyone good luck who is standing for re-election. And that draws this committee to a close. Thank you.
My phone back up, otherwise I go home and then I'm running down the house trying to find it, and because it's on silent.